I always believed pain had a sound, a quiet, trembling whisper that lived in the bones of those who carried too much. But the night my sister showed up at my door, pain didn't whisper. It screamed. Her face was swollen, one eye barely opening, her lips split, and her shoulders shaking as if the weight of her body had finally turned against her. She didn't have to tell me what happened. I knew. I felt it before she even stepped inside. The kind of darkness that clings to a person when they've been hurt by someone who promised to love them. My sister, Mira, she was the gentle one, the soft one, the one who apologized even when someone else stepped on her foot. And her husband, the man she married in good faith, had turned her softness into a playground for cruelty. When she collapsed into my arms, sobbing without making a sound, something inside me cracked in half, because I realized if I didn't do something, if I didn't become something, she would not survive him. And that was the night the idea was born, the reckless, unthinkable, dangerous idea that would change all our lives forever. Before I tell you what I did, before I tell you how I walked into that man's house, looked him in the eyes, and made him taste every drop of the pain he poured into my sister, please like the video. Subscribe if you want more stories that shake the heart, and stay until the end, because what happened still haunts me in ways I can't explain. And yet, it saved us both. My name is Era, identical twin to Mira. Mirror image by birth, but a storm by choice. And this is how I traded places with my bruised sister and turned her husband's life into a living hell. Without ever lifting a hand, the plan unfolded slowly, like a shadow slipping beneath a locked door. Mira didn't want it. Of course she didn't. She begged me not to get involved, clutching my hands, whispering, Era, he'll hurt you too, please. Don't go near him. He's dangerous. But that was exactly why I had to go. You see, my sister wasn't just hurt. She was erased, piece by piece, day by day. He had taken her confidence first, then her joy, then her voice. I wasn't going to let him take her life. So it happened on a Sunday morning. The morning he expected her back after she visited me. He didn't. Know that the woman walking into his house wasn't the one he broke. It was the one he never saw coming. I wore her clothes, tied my hair like hers, even softened my posture to match her timidness. And when I stepped through that door, I felt the air tighten around me. He looked up from the dining table. His eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, didn't see Mira. They saw the version of her he owned. Or time Lagadia. He muttered without looking fully at me. My hand curled into a fist at my side. The urge to throw the truth in his face almost choked me. But I smiled the way Mira had learned to, a fearful, trembling smile, and sat down quietly. That's when I saw it. The bruise on his knuckle, dark, fresh, proof of what he'd done. Something burned in my chest. A fire so fierce it nearly broke through my calm. But revenge, the kind that works, isn't loud. It's quiet, calculated, poetic. So when he reached for his cup and barked, Chai Lao, I stood up, slowly, but not the way Mira would have. Not small, not afraid. I moved with a stillness that made him look at me fully. For the first time ever, he truly looked. And confusion flickered in his eyes because I didn't shrink. I didn't jump. I didn't apologize. I simply walked to the kitchen, poured tea, and placed it before him like it belonged to me, not him. He stared at me as if trying to solve a puzzle he didn't know existed. That was the beginning. The beginning of the cracks in his certainty. The beginning of his confusion. The beginning of him questioning why his wife wasn't breaking anymore. That day, I didn't give him answers. I gave him silence, the kind that unnerves. Every time he tried to provoke me, I looked at him with a calm he couldn't shatter. Every time he tried to belittle me, I responded with a steady gaze instead of flinching. I wasn't fighting him. I wasn't arguing. I wasn't yelling. I was changing the language of power. Slowly, I watched something terrifying happen in his eyes, something I never expected: uncertainty. Because men like him survive on control. When control slips, even by an inch, they unravel. That night, as he slept, I stood at the doorway watching the man who hurt my sister. And for the first time, I didn't feel hatred. I felt power, not over him, but over myself, over fear, over the part of me that once believed monsters were unstoppable. I left the room, sat on the balcony, and whispered into the night, "Mira, he doesn't own your life anymore, and he will never, ever break you again." I didn't know then how far this would go, how deep the unraveling would run, how his past, his dark, hidden past, would rise to destroy him long before I ever needed to lift a finger. But I did know one thing: this was only the beginning, and I was just getting started. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was scared of him, but because I felt a strange calm settling inside me. A calm I didn't recognize. A calm that didn't belong to Mira. It belonged to me. I sat on the balcony until dawn, listening to the quiet pulse of a house built on fear. Every wall, every piece of furniture, every shadow felt soaked with the silent tears my sister must have cried here. But now, there was a different woman inside these walls. A woman he had never learned how to break. Morning. Light seeped through the curtains like a truth he couldn't hide from anymore. And that's when it began, the unraveling. He came into the living room with that stiff confidence of a man who believed the world owed him obedience. He stood there, arms crossed, expecting me to jump, to serve, to shrink. But instead, I remained seated, calm, still, unapologetic. "Breakfast?" he said sharply. I didn't move. He frowned. "Mira, tum sun nahi rahi?" I lifted my eyes to him, slowly, purposefully, and something in the way I looked at him made his breath hitch for half a second. Just half. But half was enough, because for the first time, he wasn't sure, and uncertainty is poison for men like him. His voice softened, not out of love, but out of confusion. "Mudhik nahi, kuch hua hai." Something happened. Yes, your wife disappeared, and her mirror walked in with a fire she never expected. But I didn't answer. I simply stood up, walked past him, and opened the balcony door, letting the morning breeze push through the suffocating air of the house. He hated doors left open. Mira told me that once, so I left it wide open. He stiffened, jaw ticking, but he didn't dare say anything, because something in me warned him, "Try it. I dare you." That was the moment the balance of power shifted. Subtly, silently, irreversibly. Over the next few days, I became the ghost he couldn't predict. Not obedient, not rebellious, just unreadable. And unreadable women terrify abusive men. When he raised his voice, I didn't flinch. When he tried to guilt-trip me, I stared straight into his eyes until he looked away first. When he tried to assert dominance, I responded with a cold, expressionless silence that made him check his own reflection. He didn't know the rules anymore. And for a man like him, that was hell. The first time he reached for my arm, gripping it with that same cruelty he had used on my sister, I didn't pull back. I stepped closer, so close he had to lean away. His hand slipped from my arm like he had touched fire. "Apthik hauna," he whispered, voice cracked with confusion. And I realized something. He wasn't just losing control. He was afraid, not of me. Not exactly. He was afraid of the unfamiliar, the unpredictable, the version of his wife that didn't fit into the fragile little box he tried to keep her in. I became the storm he thought he could tame. And every day, I shook a new piece of his world. One night, after days of watching him unravel, I heard the first crack in his voice. It happened after dinner, his favorite meal, which I intentionally oversalted without saying a word. He pushed the plate away and said, "Mira, tumboat betel geiho." I turned my head slowly. "I know," I whispered. He blinked, taken aback by how calm, how certain, how utterly unshakable I sounded. Something in his chest tightened. I could see it. Regret? Fear? Confusion? Maybe all three. "You used to listen," he said quietly. "And you used to care," I replied. He opened his mouth, but no words came out, because even he knew it was true. That night, he didn't sleep. He tossed, turned, breathed heavily, got up, sat down, walked around the room like a man haunted by a ghost he couldn't exorcise. The ghost was me. Or the version of me he thought was Mira. At one point, around 3 a.m., he whispered into the darkness, "Mira, Ager Maini Kebi, Galata." His voice shook. Bus Ager. I didn't mean to. He couldn't finish the sentence. Because guilt is a language abusive men speak only when they are losing control. I didn't respond. I let the silence sit on his chest like a weight he desperately wanted to lift. Regret had found him. Late, shallow, fragile. But it had found him. And that was enough. But the real storm didn't hit until the 7th day. I found something. An envelope, hidden behind his shirts. Mira had never known it existed. Inside were documents, bank statements, messages, photos, proof of everything he'd done not just to her, but to others before her. He had a history, a trail of women, a history of bruised lives, and he hid it all behind a clean reputation. A respected man, a good husband, a man whose darkness lived in whispers and locked rooms. Holding those papers, something inside me snapped, not with anger, but with certainty. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about ending him, not with violence, not with screaming, not with chaos. But with truth. Truth is the only thing abusive men cannot survive. That evening, when he came home and saw me sitting calmly with those documents spread out on the table, I watched the blood drain from his face. His breath stuttered. His hands trembled. He froze where he stood. "Kekahan Miley, yeah," he whispered. For the first time, he wasn't speaking like a monster. He was speaking like a man who knew his life was no longer his. I looked up slowly, no fear, no softness, no confusion. Just truth. "Your past," I said quietly, "has been waiting for you." He swallowed hard, backing away without realizing it. And then, the words slipped from his lips like a confession he never meant to make. "Mira, please don't leave." He didn't know. He didn't understand. And he didn't deserve to. Because he wasn't talking to Mira. He was talking to the storm. To me. To the woman who came to free her twin sister and destroy the man who broke her. In that moment, watching him crumble, watching him shake, watching him beg without knowing who he was begging, I realized the truth. I didn't have to make his life a living hell. He was already living in it. He built it. Brick by brick, lie by lie, bruise by bruise. All I had to do was show him the mirror and let him drown in his own reflection. I didn't expect him to cry, but he did. The moment he realized I had uncovered everything he had spent years hiding. His knees weakened, his shoulders collapsed, and his breath broke in half. "Mira, please." His voice trembled like a child caught with blood on his hands. I watched him struggle to form words, the same man who once used those very words as weapons. Now they turned to ash in his mouth. He stepped toward me, shaking, desperate, frantic. There was something hollow in his eyes, something frightened, something raw. I can change. I swear bus ik makadidu. One chance. The irony almost made me laugh. How many chances had he stolen from my sister, from the women before her, from anyone who loved him? He was a man who fed off forgiveness each pardon, another leash he tightened around his victims. And now he wanted forgiveness from a woman who wasn't even his wife. I stood still, expressionless, unmovable, and the silence, the silence shattered him more than any scream ever could. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. Tamir Bina, Renahi Pauji, he whispered, trying to find the arrogance he once lived on. I tilted my head slightly. Watch me. I said that the words struck him harder than any physical blow. Something inside him snapped. I could see it. The panic in his chest turned into desperation. Desperation turned into anger. Anger turned into that familiar darkness he used on Mira. He lunged forward, but this time, he didn't reach a terrified woman. He reached a wall. I stepped aside, before his hand even brushed me, moving with a stillness so precise that he stumbled forward instead, catching himself on the edge of the table. Mira, please, I don't want to fight, he begged, shaking. I'm not fighting, I whispered, but I'm not yours. His head shot up. Confusion spread across his face like a shadow. What do you mean, Tamho Khan? And just like that, the moment had come. My heart beat once, twice slow, steady. And then I said the words that ended his illusion in one breath. I'm not Mira. His entire body froze, his shoulders, his lungs, his heartbeat, everything. What? He breathed. I stepped back, letting light fall across my face, revealing the slight differences he never noticed. The strength in my posture, the certainty in my eyes, the fire he had never been able to extinguish. I'm Mira, I said, my own name filling the space like a truth he didn't deserve to hear. Mira is safe, far away from you. You'll never touch her again. His lips parted. No sound came out. Just shock. Shock deep enough to cut through every lie he ever told himself. You tricked me. He whispered, horrified. You abused my sister. I corrected softly. I just showed you the consequences. He stumbled backward, hands trembling so violently they looked possessed. You can't. This is illegal. I stepped closer. He stepped back. For the first time, he was the one afraid of being cornered. You kept secrets too, I said, lifting the folder of documents. You hid your past, your arrests, your complaints, the restraining orders, the other women, the violence, the threats, the lies. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. And guess what? I whispered, leaning just close enough for him to feel the weight of his own sins. I'm not the only one who knows now. His face drained of all color. My lawyer has copies. My parents have copies. And by the time you wake up tomorrow, so will the authorities. He shook his head violently. No, you can't. You already did. I said quietly, and for the first time, he understood. Not just that he lost, but that he lost to the truth. He ran, not away from me, away from the reality collapsing around him. He grabbed his phone, called someone. No one picked up. He grabbed his jacket. He paced. He muttered. He cursed. He prayed. And I watched, silent, still. Unshaken by dawn, he had packed a bag, threw things into it blindly, breathing like a man being hunted by his own conscience. Before leaving, he stopped at the door, his back to me, his voice barely a ghost. I loved you, he whispered, finally. I allowed myself to answer. You never loved Mira, I said. You loved control. He swallowed, but he didn't turn. And you, Mira, whoever you are now. He hesitated. You destroyed me. I exhaled softly. No, I said. You destroyed yourself. I just turned the lights on. He left without another word, without another breath, without another lie. And Mira, my beautiful, gentle, bruised sister, she never had to see his face again. When I returned home and she opened the door, fragile, healing, but alive, she collapsed into my arms, sobbing with a pain I would carry for the rest of my life. Did he hurt you? She whispered through tears. No, I said, holding her face gently. He never touched me. He never will touch you again. Her relief broke something inside me. I felt it. That final crack in the armor I had worn for her. For months, she healed. For months, he unraveled. The authorities followed the evidence. The women he had hurt found courage when they realized they weren't alone. His career evaporated. His reputation burned. His lies surfaced. His mask fell. And slowly, the man who once terrorized her life became a name whispered with disgust, not fear. That was justice, not revenge. Justice. As for me, I changed too. I wasn't the girl who hid behind her twin's softness. I wasn't the shadow. I wasn't the observer. I became the woman who stood up when standing up felt impossible. One evening, months later, Mira and I walked along a quiet road lined with trees. She held my hand like we were children again. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. I smiled, a real, peaceful smile. Not for a second. She leaned on my shoulder. You saved me, she whispered. I shook my head gently. No, I said. You saved yourself the moment you asked for help. I just finished the story you were too scared to begin. The wind moved through the trees like a sigh of relief. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the strongest, most beautiful kind of revenge is giving someone their freedom back. And Mira had hers. Finally, fully, forever.